look at domestic, institutional, and commercial, but also they would come out with the one for agriculture or water for production, where they would look at livestock, irrigation, and fisheries, but also they should come out with the industrial water demand, where they would look at the industries and the construction sector, but also they should provide a brief quantity on the hydropower generation. We also hope that under that, they would probably talk about the water quality within Uganda. Then another sector under that, they would probably talk about, in brief, the sanitation bit of it, although we are trying to incorporate with hygiene, but the team said the health sector is basically handling that part of the hygiene. So we had looked at that the consultant should try to look at the health NAP, but also looking at the UBOS report, where they would try to provide the access to sanitation, looking at household levels, but also within the public institutions. We had also seen that within the table, they had provided a provision of statistics. For example, they had looked at that 65% of the populations are dependent on groundwater. So the team on our side, we are saying that probably the consultant, if it's okay with them, should try to provide the citations where they have gotten this statistic from. Another stuff that we had looked at under the risk, yes, they have comprehensively under that, but there are some other few areas that we have put under track changes. For example, under the column of system vulnerability, they had mentioned limited water treatment and capacity in rural areas, but also we wanted them to look within the peri-urban and even within the urban areas. They might even be worse compared to the rural areas. But also we wanted them to look at the industrial facilities, because we believe that we also have inadequate effluent treatment probably within the industries that we have within the country. We have put that within the track changes, but also there are various statistics within the country. For example, they were trying to give us under the NDC 2, they were trying to make a comparison, the baseline, the target, and actually the status. Now, for example, under the rural water access, they had actually put 69, but we said probably we could go, if okay, we would look at the recent ministerial policy statement, which talks of around 68%. So we had also tried to provide that within the track changes. Then under the priority, where we are looking at the access, they are trying to dissect this. For example, under table 1.16, where they are looking at the climate resilient, we had also tried to provide something that really we must go hand in hand with what we have within the NDP4. Now, for example, yes, under the rural water coverage, we had talked of 67%. But of course, and that is what we have within the NDP4, but also the target within the NDP4. They are saying that by 2030, their target would actually be 75, but we are trying to convince them that probably would go with the target that we have within the NDP, because that would be our implementation for the next 5 years. So we are saying instead of 75, let's have the ambitious target of 78%. The same with urban. Then also we had looked at the multipurpose water reservoirs, where they had given us the output indicator, but also we suggested that because as Ministry of Water, we also have what we call the strategic development plan that would be running for the next 5 years. So probably we can use that target that we have within the strategic development plan for the ministry.
Manuel,
yeah,
you summarize in a minute.
Okay, thank you. They're saying I should summarize, but also as a team, we realized that under this, we also have a bit of the international transboundary water. This was really silent in the NDC 2, but also we are seeing it is silent in the NDC 3. So we are thinking as the consultant is trying to work on this, they should try to bring on board the issues of the international transboundary. But also, as a team, we realized that This is also really slightly silent on the water user efficiency, and we are aware that this is one of the indicators under the global goal agenda. So as a team, we are saying the consultants should try to bring something concerning the water use efficiency. I think briefly that is what we can highlight as the team water and sanitation sector, but we have what we have incorporated into the report in track changes. Thank you so much.
Finish. Emmanuel, did you finish?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So thank you very much. And thank you to the group. Please, the emails there are for you to share the documents that you've worked on. Yes. So could we have the next group? If you feel you're ready, please. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is a group that worked on disaster risk reduction sector. By my visual inspection, I think it had the youngest persons in the room. Those three ladies, please stand up so that people can appreciate whether my qualitative analysis is correct or it is wrong, but it also had veterans. It doesn't fall in the category of veterans, but Dr. Isaac was also there. Anyway, we'll try to leverage on what the earlier speaker said. In general, we appreciate the work which was done by the consultant, try to build up a case based on some publication, what could be picked here and there. And as you know, disaster risk reduction issues are cross-cutting. So in the preamble here, it is rightly stated that it's looked at from one angle as an independent priority, but a recognition that it's a cross-cutting sectoral issue. So that's a nice thing to do. And there is a lot of data that is given to sort of back up some things, notwithstanding that fact, there are issues we picked up. There is this number of 200,000 persons affected or Ugandans affected annually. It's a number that has been there for a long time. If I look at my age, it has persisted over a period of time. And the point I want to say that for Ugandans who are very productive looking at our demographic conditions, surely it should have gone higher than this. And we need to check a bit and see how best we need to understand this, rather to reflect the appropriate numbers. What we found is that there is a lot of linkage to some work that has been published, but what is also missing in the document, but we are also missing persons from the Office of Prime Minister, OPM. This is their area, but they also now produce what we call the annual state of disaster reports with some quantitative numbers and figures and damages. I think it will make a lot of sense if this is updated with some of the computations from there. Then the knowledge based and the preamble becomes much more strengthened here and there. The document captures the main hazards that the country is contending with. Natural hazards are particularly the landslides, the floods, the drought, and the like. That comes out very, very strongly. We have had conversations as to whether some of the other hazards, like biohazards, the epidemics and pandemics, whether it needs to come here or it is being adequately addressed by the head of the people. I'm seeing some smiles coming from there. But it's a case of let's not forget it because it occupies a significant space in the disaster landscape of Uganda. When you come to the table, the tables that indicate the key hazards, those are rightly addressed. We had a feeling that it's pointing more at smaller areas instead of capturing the bigger picture. For example, if you tell me Kasese with floods, rather than talking about the Rwenzori or the entire Nyamwamba landscape, then you can miss out that you are going to concentrate on, what do they say? The symptom rather than, yeah. So the recommendation and some of the things we've put here is capture the landscape in totality together with those issues that are part and parcel. There are a few things to do with the nomenclature, the terminology. They don't need a lot of intellectual power, so I will not go into that. I'm sure they will just be addressed from an editorial point of view. The work rightly picks or points to what was there in NDC 2 and then what is anticipated in NDC 3. And then looking at that, there are areas where we have indicated, observed, but indicated that they should be improved. There is a strong emphasis on meteorological aspects. But we also have other aspects like hydrology. So if you are going to build a system that builds resilience, then you need to make connections here and there. Also, the other thing we observed quite from a general point of view is that the configuration here is heavy. It is centered largely on the hazards. But then we know that when we speak about disasters, you have the hazards, you also have the vulnerability, at least from the simple point of view of understanding them. And therefore, the tenets and elements that define what we are doing should also bring out the vulnerability component. And in so doing, we'll be able to address things in a much better way. There are propositions here indicating 3 areas of focus. The first one is climate information services and early warning. The second one is subnational DRR mainstreaming and community preparedness. The third one is on policy coherency and institutional coordination with elements of what has to be done there. We have discussed issues of the nomenclature, like when you talk about meteorological accuracy, what does it mean? What's the real context? What's the baseline? What do we need to monitor? What do we need to track to see that there has actually been advancement from the baseline conditions? And then when you also go up, for these which are empirical, one can say you are more comfortable. But when you look at early warning systems, you can look at those that you can monitor or transmit from up there. There has been a voice towards also integrating things like indigenous knowledge and whatever into a contextual applicable early warning system. So if we are going to go that way, then they also ought to come into what is being proposed here. The question is, how do you state your baseline and what are you going to monitor? But even with those that are empirical, instrumental, we think that they should be more integrated rather than isolated. So instead of just looking at maybe automatic weather stations, we should by now be talking about an Internet of Things connected together that can deliver benefits to society. The use of artificial intelligence is the thing of the day. How do you develop systems that can help this to be part and parcel of the adaptation measure. So we need to develop frameworks for those integration, but they also mean bringing many actors together. Other than those, we also have proposed, apart from the three, we need something, if this can be bought into by Simambo and group, knowledge creation, knowledge management, and institutional strengthening. You can't work from a vacuum and look for baseline that you cannot create easily and monitor, so there may be need to invest something in that area. We can't stand here, two people, and there is only one person talking, and I can see the discomfort in terms of time remaining from the moderator. So I request my young member here, I'm using that on the basis of age, to summarize and cap up what I may have not spoken. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you need my company here, or I can go and
You can give me company still,
okay.
it's okay. Yeah, anyways, he's captured most of the issues that we discussed. I just wanted to highlight that in the monitoring framework, there are a few issues, especially to do with the indicators that have been proposed. Some indicators are not sufficient for the measure that has been identified. So for example, when we say we want to integrate DRR into sectoral development plans and budget framework papers, those are two separate things, and yet only one indicator has been proposed. So sectoral development plans are sectoral in nature, while budget framework papers are at program levels. That means we need separate indicators to track them. And there's a few examples where this actually applies. So many of them will need to be sorted out. And then there are indicators where we talk of at-risk communities. So when we say we want to see the percentage of at-risk communities with functional DRR committees, the question that is begged is, what do we mean by at-risk community? Do we mean villages? Do we mean parishes? At what level is it? Because to be able to track the indicator properly, we need to know what the at-risk community is. So we have to define that. And then, yeah, I think it's basically that. Maybe one other thing along the indicators is we have an indicator that measures the accuracy of meteorological information. And we're saying we have a baseline of 77%. We have a target to hit up to 95% of accuracy. So it's like, at what timeline is this measurement being taken? If we're forecasting from 24 hours away, the accuracy cannot be the same as if we are forecasting from an hour away. And so when we say we want to measure the accuracy of meteorological information, I think we need to specify where we are taking the measurement from, so that so it's really just around panel beating the indicators so that we have a more measurable indicator. And secondly, to make sure that all the measures that have been identified in the individual adaptation actions is measured using a separate indicator. So that's it. Thank you.
We worked in several files, we will email them, but also those are part of the so what they are part in the
Okay, thank you very much. I suggest that Sydney, you pick those documents and merge so that we have them in one. Okay, so this is transport and energy and industry. Okay. Key highlights, please. What are the significant gaps that you have?
Yes, as I said before, we have got the energy, transport, and industries. It's louder, okay? Okay, so this covers the areas of energy, transport, and also an industry. What we did, of course, we started with at the opening, there was some comments saying about the baseline. Okay. So my understanding of the baseline, it should be a year whereby all the data is available. The case that I've been hearing of the baseline being to 2020. Like they're saying that this year is going to be 2026. So I wonder whether you have all the data in 2026. Some of the things I think which I'm going to start with. And then we look at the document. Generally, it was well done, but of course, there is always some few issues which we look to add. Yeah. So we look at the tables, and then of course we find out that some few things which are added and other which is tracked. We say like now we said that no, be having the progressive demand of energy, and then we are looking at hydro, but even if we use all the hydro, it goes up to about 40,000 megawatt there, 40,000 megawatt. So it means that as we go to the hydro, we also have to look at the nuclear. Okay, this is the next the energy we want to use the next. Okay, so by 2031, we'll be having to go in nuclear because it's very easy to install rather than taking a very long time. So the ministry have done a lot of that. And also, they're also looking at geothermal, but geothermal is still far behind if you compare with the other sources of energy. And then we look also at the electricity distribution. There are figures we talk about expansion of operational mini grids. They say that the baseline for 2025 was 46 operation. Then for 25 targets, they put a 2,712 operational. We think it could be a typo error. Okay, we need the consultants to look at that. And then furthermore, we also looked at the other documents that they are fine. And then we will look at the local availability. They talk about capacity. They talk about to 4,400, and then you want 66,000 megawatts by 2023. So by 2035. Now we look at what we have now is about 2,000, and then you want to 4,200 by 2030. Can we make it? Some people are saying they say that you have to be optimistic, and you have to be optimistic. Even though it may not reach, but we should put there say that now we're really aiming for that. But it'd be hard for us to get the 4,000 by 2030. So we look at that. And then also, so we look at we look at the policies alignment. We have got energy, we have policies which are already in place. We have got the energy efficiency and conservation that an Act 2026 already there. And then also there is green manufacturing strategies which is in place. And also the SDG 5, the promotion of the gender equality through time burden of the women and girls. It has to be in the part of the alignment with the other policy. You put it there, the consultant will pick from there and then improve on that. Transport sector, there, of course, we look at the vulnerability, and then also briefly we look also at the issue of the flood and then the landslide, which is basically very common. In the document, they put say that they said that the most severe impact is concentrated in the southwest, and then they gave the figure of about $8,200 per kilometer. What we say that now, if you look at the flood, we have got, of course, yeah, most of them they are far west, but again, if you look at the eastern part of Uganda, it's also open to the floods, to the landslide. And there's mentioned much about the flood as far as the road is concerned. And we say that now there is some areas which are low areas, when the Lake Choga, Lake Victoria, and Lake Albert, the low areas, are going to have very severe floods. So it's going to impact also on the roads, transport, the road system. Okay, and so we have got this one, we added this one. I think this is basically the one what we covered. I think the other just is small typography errors which we corrected. I think we stop there, and then the details will be found in the document we sent to that email address. Thank you. Yes. Yes, okay, sorry, yeah. So manufacturing industries, okay? We look at the manufacturing industries, process and mining sector. So they are the document. I think these areas were well covered, but only we added some few things. Also, like now, if you look at table 173, there is the disruption in the agro processing industry and raw material supply. This are among the categories of the risks which will be available. But then they have the drivers, sectors, system, environmental, this one, they are well covered. That's what we added there. And then also we look at the issue of the disruption, of course, what the oil and gas operation. So this one looks more like the energy, but this also among the sectors which comes, because there we have to extract. So there we have, of course, the flooding, extreme weather is going to happen there, and then also the temperature. Okay, so there in fact we had there about a row. Okay, we put those one there. We extract. We put the gas and oil separately as a new row. And then we looked at the impact. We look at the impact, the key drivers, the sectors, system variability, and also we look at the affected areas. This is the area of the industry. Yeah, I think this basically this is what we had. Adaptation, of course, talk about circular economy, which is everywhere now. Okay, and was being emphasized also in this document. They covered, but we just added up. It's about 10%. They had something about some proportion of the circular economy. We talk also integrating climate risk into oil and gas and environmental assessment framework. Yes, so I think this one, okay, and lastly, of course, then we look at the national policies. We have got the Mining and Minerals Act, which is coming, which was added to 2022. And then also we have we have got the Mining and Minerals Alliances, the Regulation 2023. And then we have also the National Oil and Gas Policy 2025. And also the petroleum exploration, this one, of course, the other bill Uganda by Uganda, this also there. If you think that now, if the consultant can look at those policies, it can improve, okay, what was written down. Okay, this were not covered properly in the document. I think, of course, this is where we we stopped. Otherwise, they did good work, but of course there is few things which has to be improved. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, and to you and to the entire group. Please share that, but also these policy documents that you mentioned, you could also tag them along as you share the document. All right, thank you very much. Didakas, Health?
Thank you very much, moderator. Regarding the health sector, it begins from page 57, and we want to thank the consultant. They did a good job, but we added a lot of stuff. The first part looks at the assessment in terms of adaptation, and the consultant was basing largely on the CRVA. But in the health sector, we did a VAA, Vulnerability and Adaptation Assessment. So we enriched the text with a lot of stuff from there. We put percentages of how many of our health facilities are affected by heat, by storms, by floods, landslides, heat, and cold waves. So we enriched that section tremendously. When we come down, we also observed that the health sector climate risks are also deeply interconnected with other priority sectors. For instance, when we talk about energy, when we have no energy in the health sector, it influences how we deliver services in the health sector. When we talk about water, clean water in our health facilities, it affects. So there is that interconnectedness, and we highlighted that in our comments. We also observed that the implementation in NDC 2.0 confirmed that there is limited financing of climate health related issues in the health sector. We emphasized that in NDC 3.0, and we hope this will highlight that, and we can be able to source some funding from international agencies like GCF, like Adaptation Fund, because they look at these documents, and so we want to make sure we get that money. We did some work on the tables, which look at the risk category, climate drivers. We did a lot of input in those tables. I'm not gonna go into the details, but the details are there. Then transition from NDC 2.0 to NDC 3.0. We also added the fact that we now have the HNAP. The HNAP, for those of you who may not know, it is the Climate Change Health National Adaptation Plan. And it's our blueprint that identifies the strategies and interventions that as the health sector, we need to implement in order to make the health sector resilient. They are summarized in 10 components, which cover the building blocks of the health system. And so the interventions, of course, they're also based on the assessment which we did, and they cover human resource, health infrastructure, environmental determinants of health. They cover financing, of course. They cover early warning systems. How can we improve early warning systems, disease specific, but rated with other extreme weather events so that we can prepare better and be on top of the game. There's a table on health sector adaptation progress based on NDC 2.0. We also added some information there and provided updates on that table. It was largely, the previous one in the draft was largely based on the GmbH 2025 study or report. So we added more information based on the Ministry of Health assessments and reports. Then we go to priority adaptation measures and targets. We reviewed those tables tremendously, and I will not go into the details. We shall share this with the consultants, and I hope you'll be able to update accordingly. I will go to alignment with national policies and international frameworks. We added information, of course, alignment with the international policies and frameworks. We have added the NDP4 for the national frameworks. We have added, of course, the the HNAP, and globally, there are other frameworks. The last COP in Brazil, there is a health compact which was signed. We have also aligned this with such existing policies. So that's the health input. We are going to have this shared with the consultant, and we hope everything should go well. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, thank you very much, Didas, and the team that worked in the health sector. Would really request that the assessment and reports that you've talked about, you share them alongside the document, if it's not the HNAP.
Actually, I've already shared those documents with the consultant. Robert is here. I think he can testify. We shared those, plus some published papers that have come out of this work. We have not only done the HNAP and the assessment, but we have published in prominent journals like Social Sciences and Medicine, and in press we have with +1. So we hope this will feed into the global knowledge base so that we can share our experiences. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Didas. I think why we wanted to, because you are making reference to key documents. Some of them are public documents where they have been publicized, but all what you want is that to avoid a question that this you have not seen, this you have not seen. So all what you need is that after renaming that this is health input into the NDC 3.0, then, and you have made a reference to a report, if you are in custody of it and you have it, you share on those 2 emails, it doesn't make harm. So that now when we receive it, we just forward the input into the document and the report which has been referred to. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let's say it again. Gender. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nega Doreen. I am from Regenerate Africa. I'll be presenting on gender. Our work has been cross-cutting with health, the health department. Luckily for us, we were able to support on the health components. That's why we're able to see that our table was able to get done with its work way earlier on, because Regenerate Africa was able to support on that the technical committee team from Ministry of Gender and Health, and our comments have already been integrated. But coming back to what Mr. Didakas was able to share, some of our comments in the health sector were from the research that Regenerate Africa has done, and we have a number of health reports which are trying to see how can we integrate and advance health into NDC3, which we can be able to share with you. Coming back to the topic for my presentation, which is on gender, the first heading, we do realize that though the consultants were able to talk about gender, children, and climate change, there is an aspect that they were able to leave out, that is vulnerable groups. And in here, this was our main recommendation on the heading to include our vulnerable groups, those are people with disabilities. Under the gender component, we do realize that climate change doesn't affect all people equally, that's men and women. We're able to make advances and also comments to include people with disabilities, indigenous persons, elderly, men, and the women. But recognizing the effects of climate change, in here, we are able to bring into the story from what Regenerate has been able to do and from our research reports, that's advancing gender response climate action, strengthening gender integration into Uganda's NDC 3.0. And in here, we are able to do the entire mapping of what NDC 2.0 had and what gaps it was able to leave out, which we're able to integrate, and the comments that we shall share with everyone. Our comments have been integrated into NDC 3, for which we are grateful to the consultants, recognizing the efforts that Regenerate Africa was able to do. We do understand that the gendered vulnerabilities that affecting women, that's men, women, but especially the women, they're intertwined with gaps in health systems. And these gaps in health systems, we are talking about maternal and newborn care prevention, sexually transmitted infections, gender-based violence response, which are often fragile and even become more inaccessible. And in here, we are making reference to the same reports that I've been able to share with you. Most of our comments into the introduction, we shall be able to share with you, then you can be able to read. Because of time, I will come closely to the different tables. That's table 1.14, which is looking at climate-related gender and children risks. And amongst the affected groups, recalling my earlier submission that this sector, it was limited and narrow linked to men and women and leaving out people with disabilities, indigenous persons, elderly, and the children, which comments were able also to integrate on the affected groups. Under the same table for climate-related gender and children risks and drivers, we understand that amongst the risk categories the consultants were able to do, it was on school disruption dropouts, but we also do understand that illiteracy could be a bending factor which we needed to be integrated. Amongst the system vulnerabilities, we're able to look at child labor as a system vulnerability, which is under the risk category of child protection and safety risks. In here, we're able to make more comments into adding displacement, migration, and community conflicts, which under a risk category, because we do understand that floods, drought, landslides are key climate drivers to this risk category, and we're able to make comments into the sector impacts, system vulnerabilities, and also expound more on the affected groups. And under this category, we have been looking at pastoralists and agro-pastoralist communities, internally displaced persons, and name it all, which comments everyone will be able to see in the same document. Coming under transition from NDC 2.0 to NDC 3.0, based still on the same report from Regenerate Africa on advancing gender response climate action, we do understand that NDC 2.0 lacked attention to an integration of SRH as a precondition for gender equality. And in here, we have been able to make some under table 195 on the NDC 2.0 action, which was looking on conducting gender analysis for NDC sectors. We have been able to integrate and also include water, forestry, and transport. On the status for 2025, we are saying that gender analysis on water, forestry, and transports need to be included, which are the comments that we shall be able to do, and we have been able to integrate. Under the priority adaptation measures and targets for NDC 3, we have been able to include more reports for reference for the partners, but then also for anyone who would be interested in advancing the same cause. We have been able to also make some track changes under gender and child response governance, data and institutional capacity, and some of the sources or even the basis that consultants were able to provide, it was narrowed. We have been able to include the Ministry of Gender because we do understand we cannot take a gendered approach towards adaptation without having the Ministry of Gender at the forefront. Recognizing the role of financing and as an adaptation measure, the consultants were able to ask for the establishment of a dedicated gender responsive budgeting. But then we do understand we cannot have a budgeting without having a gender responsive planning, which we have also been able to include. Because of time, most of our comments will be integrated, but we are grateful to the entire team and we are looking forward to an NDC3 that is gender responsive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Team Gender. Thank you for your input. Irina, is that gender health? Cities.
Thank you, Scovia, for that excellent guess. But I'm presenting on behalf of cities and built environmental sector. Please, the smart minds behind this, put your hands up. Yes. Excellent. So I'm just going to provide a summary. So it is cities and built environmental sector. So right now we know that our cities, we're having an increase in the number of cities, henceforth the relevance of this. So when it comes to cities and built environmental sector, I'm going to present on a few aspects. The first is the climate-related urban risks, adaptation measures, outcomes of the GGA alignment to international policies. So when it came to the climate-related urban risks, there are landslides, heat islands, floods, all those hazards. However, the comments were that they need to refer to the most recent reports. For example, OPM 2025 and the risk profile. We also tried to edit a few typing errors. For example, things related to fluvial or pluvial flooding. These do not relate to us. We corrected them to flash floods, and also a request to refer more to our national documents. Then the next section is on the adaptation measures. In the adaptation measures, we looked at 4 components: component on housing, then greening, then another component on waste, and then governance. So table 180 talks about sustainable urbanization and housing. So in most cases, we're looking at the measures. Do the measures relate to what we have? For example, we had a measure on review and update national building codes. We already had building codes, so there's no need to design building codes. So we're just customizing the language and also ensuring that whatever indicator we have is measurable. So for the building codes, the measurable indicator was the level of compliance of the building codes. Then, yes, so we also looked at another section on the length of drainage channels constructed and improve. That is an indicator for the measure on building and expanding resilient infrastructure. Then the section on green infrastructure, one of the things we looked at was urban greening and paved roads. Then on solid waste management, the recommendations on promoting circular economy. And then when it came to good urban governance and social inclusion, it looked at gender and safety net. So we're just customizing the language to ensure that it suits our national context, and also the indicators are actually measurable. So there's a lot. That's just a summary. Then on the section on expected adaptation outcomes and the GGA alignment, we said that the proposed indicators should be in coherence with indicators on built cities still within the GGA. So the indicators that are proposed for us should align to the GGA indicators on urban cities. Then the next section on alignment to international policy frameworks, we did add a few policies, for example, the housing policy and the Building Control Act. Then we also handled waste. When it came to waste, the first measure on expansion of sewer waste treatment and coverage, we noticed that the target goes for 2050. We're suggesting a target for 2035 because it's the NDC3. And then we also took note that the second and third measures are similar, e.g. solid waste collection coverage and then enhanced solid waste collection coverage. There seemed to be a repetition. And then lastly, there was a suggestion for the inclusion of construction and demolition waste as a category. However, the question was, if we include it, can it be measured? can it be monitored? So I submit on behalf of my group.
Very much to the group and to you for the presentation. I think I see a lot of issues coming up still on the targets and indicators across the groups. I do hope you've proposed some, and please share the required reports or documents that we can refer to. So thank you very much. We now have forestry, tourism.
Thank you for the opportunity. First, want to report that the time that was given was not sufficient for us to look at those 3 critical sectors. So, but for purposes of our NDC, we looked at the targets and we're thinking if it is possible for the team Zaturi to kind of review and maybe update the phrasing of our indicators, it would make some good sense for us. I'm just trying to go to the page. So we had comments for each of the sectors. And it is going to be prudent for the subsector leads to come and share with us what their comments were. So for the part, for forestry, we looked at the beginning, the forest sector, our forest cover from 1990 to 2017. They reported 10% decline to 10% decline, but the statistics we have shows 12.4%. So we updated that. Then for the climate-related forestry risks and drivers, we retained the wording, but also adopted to include the affected subsectors, trees on farms. So to go for all the sectors. Then for priorities for adaptation measures and targets, we're asking ourselves, heat, why would we be referencing heat for our referencing, yet they were doing the work on behalf of government of Uganda? Why shouldn't that report be a government of Uganda report other than heat? So we're not comfortable with having heat as the author for the material that was quoted. Then in terms of the scale up, the adaptation measure, looking at scale up, intensify, and sustain afforestation, reforestation, we said from NDC 2.0, if you had an excess of 333,000 hectares, why would we capture 167 that as our baseline? So we're thinking they will need to revise this target so that we capture that surplus of the hectares we have, then we project upwards. Then for connectivity of wildlife corridors, in the indicator, we just added the statement, number of functional ecological corridors linking major forests, reserves, and other protected areas. Then we had an adaptation measure of establish, strengthen, ex situ conservation, forestry. There, in the indicators, there is number of established botanical gardens, but then there is also number of operational ex situ forestry conservation centers. So we think this would be similar to the botanical garden, so it wouldn't work for us. So we propose to delete it. Then we moved also to table 1.21, 26, that is climate smart agroforestry, community forestry, and etc. There is an adaptation measure of develop and promote sustainable forest product marketing value chains to enhance market access, value chain and incentives, etc. We're looking at our baseline value, and it wasn't coming out clearly. So maybe the consultant needs to dig for us deeper to see that we get a good baseline for our data. Then for information systems, that is the Forest Information System and the MRV, digital MRV expansion, strengthen and upgrade the existing National Forest Information System. Several agencies have this system, so we need to just harmonize. We have one system that we can use, so we need to get a good system that can be sufficient for the country so that we can report on all our works. And I think that is from the forestry side. I would invite my colleague from the tourism and share something.
Thank you. Good afternoon to you all. Same group, tourism sector. He has already given the introductions on how we did this work. I'll go straight to the tables. Under tourism sector, we also made changes in different areas, with the wording, under the adaptation measures, rephrasing the indicators and identifying more appropriate indicators. In some areas, we thought that the tracking can be done across more than one indicator, which was also introduced. Some of the adaptation measures which were not in place but are underway in the sector include establishing the tourism sector climate change adaptation plan. So that's one of the interventions we have added. In NDC 2.0, a number of areas had not been captured. We have introduced them in this particular NDC 3.0. An intervention on invasive species, map, prioritize, and progressively clear high threat invasive plants in wildlife protected areas, and provided proportional implementation indicators. Maybe the shortfall here is that the baselines will be provided, I hope, by the end of this workshop, such that we have a more comprehensive item. In addition to some other indicator adaptation measures, I highlighted that we have indicators added. We add things like water harvesting tanks for communities. We have added watering holes for wildlife. So these are measurable items. Among adaptation measures added include also strengthen climate resilient livelihood diversification for tourism dependent communities with proportional trackable indicators, establishing wildlife protected areas early warning systems and climate monitoring with proportional trackable indicators. Diversification of species of wildlife in protected areas is an additional intervention measure because wildlife are engineers of ecosystems. So you find it relevant also in this state. Yeah. Among others, include climate proofing of tourism infrastructure as the other additional adaptation measure included. Strengthen and
strengthen and institutionalize integrated wildlife management systems to prevent, detect, control wildfires in savanna protected areas is also another adaptation intervention added. An observation we made, there was an adaptation intervention on invest in climate resilient roads and digital infrastructure, serving priority tourism attraction sites. I think by the time the bell for the refresher exercise was rung, this is where we were debating. Is this an intervention measure? Is this intervention measure appropriate under tourism as much as these are tourism roads, or it should be under transport? Yeah, under tourism sector, I would beg to submit. Thank you.
We have one more.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible enough? I am representing the wetlands sector, which is under the environment and ecosystem sector. So under the wetland sector, we have made changes on the acreage, the country's coverage, which is at 13.9%, about 33,762 square kilometers, and they had reported about 26,000. Then we also made changes on the percentage of the percentage change over the years, which has reduced from 15.6% in 2014, no, in 1994 to around 13.9 in 2021. That is according to the wetland status 2021. Then we went ahead and reviewed the climate-related ecosystem risks and drivers, which were fine. Then we moved on to the transition from NDC 2 to NDC 3, and we included the National Wetlands Restoration Project and enhancing wetland management and restoring peatlands, riverbanks, and lake shores, because it had been excluded and it has made a significant contribution. The rest were fine. And then we moved to the priority adaptation measures and targets for NDC 3 section, which was totally off. And I think the consultants will have to revise this because it was talking about the education sector instead of the environment and ecosystem sector. So they need to look at that. Then we moved to our targets, the main adaptation measures. They were fine. Most of them, they looked okay. The numbers were fine. We only edited a few. We added enhancing urban wetland conservation and protection through development of eco parks. And we project to make around 7 of them. Then we also added developing framework and community-based wetland management plans, which will increase the area that is being managed by the communities and the wetland areas that are being conserved. Then we also added development of natural capital accounts so that we are able to account for these ecosystems and their contribution. And the last is on invasive species and enhancing livelihoods of wetland community-dependent communities. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That is tourism, wetlands, and forestry. And I see that you've done a commendable job. Derek, I want to confirm that the team has not finished, right? Yes. So let's see how you can balance up with time, because we really, really need your input in the entire document. So for now, you'll share what you've done, but we'll also agree on how we move forward later. All right, thank you. Then we have the last group, that is agriculture.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My name is Amnaki and Herbert, and I think you are following the Bible very well, that the first will be the last, because our group was top, but now we are presenting last. But I also understand that maybe you wanted to structure it in a way that we are near the products of the agricultural sector. From here, we shall be going 40. So our group is covering the agricultural sector, which comprises of agriculture, that is crop, livestock, and then fisheries. And I also have to report that the session chair was also part of that group. So we are just presenting to the rest, but she's aware of what is contained in here. Yeah, our chapter begins from page 26, where we started with a table which is looking at the climate, smart agriculture, and sustainable land management. A number of adaptation measures were proposed, but then after review, we included one important one, which looks at promoting silvopastoral agriculture, and we provided information on the baseline, the targets for 2030 and 2035. However, also under that same table, that is table 1.8, we found out that there are some strategies that are proposed, but they also fall under the forestry, particularly the agroforestry as an intervention. And we found out that there are also some controversies in terms of information for baseline and then the target. While within the forestry sector, it is talking about a baseline of around 2.5 million hectares. Here it says the baseline is not known and it will be determined. By then we go ahead to commit that the target for 2030 is not working. That one is not working. For 2030 is 1.3 million. So what we proposed here, that where the baseline is not available, it is very difficult to commit on the figures, but rather you would quantify in terms of percentage increase, so that when you get the right facts on the baseline, then you are good to go. Because you find here what they are suggesting as the target for 2030, which is 1.3, is far below what is projected or what has been quoted within the forestry sector. And that was our proposal under that. Then we went ahead to do editorials to improve on the targets for 2030 and 2040, and also the grammar within the different tables. Under livestock, maybe my colleague can now present what we have projected under the livestock, then I will come for the fishery sector. Yeah.
Yeah. Good afternoon. On the livestock, we added some few points. We didn't add. Eh? Which one? Here. Which one? You can hear.
Yeah.
Okay, there is a comment here. It's not top media.
documents. We have guided on where these ones are found, and some of them we shall share with Scovia for passing on to the consultant so that they are correctly referenced, because we found that some of the information which was being quoted was as far as 207, and yet we have current information which is within the range of from 2000 onwards, especially when it comes to the fisheries statistics. So thank you. That's what we have to present, and we shall come back again tomorrow with the mitigation measures.
We clap for ourselves. I think we've done a good job, and we really, really, really appreciate the time that you've taken and the commitment that has been put into reviewing the document. I think in terms of some of the things that we've picked out, and as we close, we need to think about, we have an issue of data, baselines and targets. I think that has come across from all these sectors. And I think it goes back to us again. We may need to check and give us the right information on where to get updated information on that. But also, Commissioner, I want to draw your attention to some of the things, the clarity on the baseline here that has come out from the conversation, that as we work through, we need to have this clarity. And then in terms of targets where we don't have baselines, how do we handle this? Because when you look at the NDC 2.0, some of these didn't feature. We didn't even have baselines for this, and we are again moving forward with this. Is it that we are not taking stock of what we're doing? Even in the stock tech, that was a big issue. So I think as sectors and as the Secretariat, we may need to look at this. The other issues of having realistic targets versus what we have in the baseline, I think that also goes back to the sectors, because you're the ones in charge of this kind of information. But Commissioner, as you come in for the closure, another issue is the terminology on climate resilient dash. I think we use it a lot. It is okay. But when you come to the indicator, I think we need to put things that are achievable at that level. Because if we still bring it at the indicator and, for example, say number of climate resilient road infrastructure, what is that aspect that makes it climate resilient that can be measurable? I think it's time we think about this, because when you look at implementation of the NDCs, you find that there's a blanket statement because we want to fit in. But when you come to the indicator, I think we know what we're doing and what you're capable of doing as an institution. So that is where we could be more specific in terms of what is resilient about your measure or intervention. So in terms of how we want to move forward, we know that some of you have exhausted the review, but also we know that others haven't. And some of you could want to check in again with your colleagues. So we wanted to give it up to Tuesday for you to share back. But if you think what you've given us is comprehensive, then we do not expect to hear from you after Tuesday. But if you are going back to some of your sectors, and for the forestry, I think tourism and wetlands, please, we encourage that you can liaise, especially the sector leads, with your team in office to complete those respective sections and get to back to us by close of business on Tuesday. Why we are emphasizing midweek or Tuesday is because we really need to get this document out. So we need some time. I think yesterday we were apprised in terms of the timelines that it has to be out by the end of the first week of July. So meaning we are working in a very strict timeline. So thank you very much. I don't want to delay you any further, but really appreciate your input and looking forward to hearing from all of you. Could you flash the emails again for those that have not taken note, but I've seen some submissions already, and we're happy to get to you for any more clarity required. So Commissioner, I would like to welcome you to close today's session. Yeah, you're welcome.
You are given a simple order. You respect it. Thank you very much, sir. My request is simple. I make logistic announcements. They will be as follows. Each of you who has participated, you will be entitled to a facilitation for your transport via your mobile money. Should be registered in your names, and this list will be cleaned up tomorrow. Secondly, for those of you who are coming from up country, please remain behind such that we consolidate your details for your per diem. So thank you very much. Over to you, sir. I'm getting a few handicaps here. I don't know the problem. I think people are not interested. Okay, you can accept the money.
Thank you very much, Robert. Thank you very much, our two moderators for today. That is Fiona Adikini for the morning session and Scovia Akot for the afternoon session. So I think my words are going to be very few. First and foremost, we thank you for the time that you have put forward to deliberate on the adaptation component of the NDC. We take note that there are sectors that are good to go, but there are sectors which are still wanting. And the same reason why we said that, please track change them, isn't it? After you have track change them, you are going to rename them, that if you have worked on energy, transport, and industry, just go to that file, NDC 3.0 _ adaptation input for transport, energy, and industry. Okay? The rest you have to do the same. So according to my analysis, first and foremost, the sectors that we have been reviewing are speaking to our national sectors here. That is the beauty, that adaptation is as much as possible linked to how we understand it within our national sectors. And that is the opposite of mitigation. Okay? So those sectors that we've been dealing with, we know them here, and actually we know who should implement what in those institutions. I think that is really something very important. So the sectors that we have not looked at, but part of adaptation, is the climate mobility, which is still a new sector. It is just featuring for the first time in NDC 3.0. And the other one is, I think, is about to loss and damage. We are also bringing it as a new in our NDCs. Then education, my brother there is working on it. We'll be sharing. That means that one we are covering. So we'll be majorly following up on those two where I did not get input. In the morning, we thought that we will not get anything to deal with gender, but turned out that gender also came on board and did their part. So what Scovia did mention that we are giving ourselves up to Tuesday, isn't it? That those who have not been able to finish, that you try to finalize and submit that component of adaptation pertaining yours. But those that have finished, it is even good that we are going to make the consultant busy, maybe health and gender, nothing to add, start with that one to integrate. Those that need some bit of additional time, we are giving up to end of business on Tuesday. So that now I'm meant to understand that the tourism part has not been well done from that group, isn't it? Or it needs some bit of additional time. So we try to provide some bit of time for people to look at the adaptation component of NDC up to end of Tuesday, and you'll be able to share. All what we need is that when you're looking at that, who is sharing with us? Because we don't want to go back, then you are the same group. The forest was sharing new, isn't it? New input. Again, wetland is sharing new input. Again, tourism sharing new input, isn't it? We just leave that room for coordination to bring in these additions, because we want to submit it as consolidated for those 3 sectors. Okay? So that will be very, very important. We can follow up with you in that regard. Tomorrow, we are going to look at mitigation. I'm made to understand that people who at the time, they also try to look at mitigation, and they have already said that there is a lot of gap in mitigation. So we want to work on that lot of gap in mitigation tomorrow and see also our advances. So we are encouraging that if possible, let's come early in the morning, because there's so many interesting things that we have to discuss under mitigation. If you can start by 9 sharp, because according to our program, it is a half-day event, isn't it? If you start by 9 sharp, then we shall try to do some bit of justice. Even me, I have noticed that there are some gaps in mitigation, but let us first identify all those gaps. Then we put the consultant on task to address our concerns. There are also issues to do with the structuring of the part of mitigation, which I've already noted that which need to be corrected, but it can only be corrected also when we have facts. You can have the rightful format that you need, but when there is no content. So I think tomorrow I'm going to focus more on the content of what is really missing in the mitigation part. Therefore, we shall not have these many groups as you see them. In adaptation, we have about 15 sectors, isn't it? So in mitigation, we are going to have about 4 sectors. We shall have IPPU alone, that is industrial product and product use. That's industrial processes and product use. It will be one group to discuss that, because this is how it is defined under mitigation. Then group number 2 will be on waste. People are interested in wastewater, the liquid waste and solid waste, they will belong to that group. Okay? So don't say that this is the waste from health, so we work on our waste alone, isn't it? Don't say that this is waste from industry, we work on our waste alone. That one will be a waste group, isn't it? So it will work onto that aspect. Even when you have waste under forestry, it will go into the waste group. That's the structuring for mitigation. Then group number 3 will be on AFORU. AFORU is agriculture, forestry, and other land uses. Now, people who are dealing with agriculture, emissions coming from the livestock, isn't it? Emissions coming from the crop processes, all those are part of AFORU team. That is agriculture, forestry, and other land uses. Other land uses we have also wetland and peatland. So that will be also one group. Okay? Because that is the categorization and the classification under the UNFCCC. Okay? Or IPPU. Then the last group will be on energy. But we know that in energy, there is energy for buildings that we use in commercial buildings. There is energy in our homes, there is energy generation, there is oil and gas, etc. And also there is energy which we use in the industry. We will not discuss it in the industry, we will discuss it in energy. Because we are looking for emissions, isn't it? There is energy coming from the forestry, isn't it? Those will go under energy. And also the transport, which we're talking about, the ingredient that we're looking out for is the energy, isn't it? If you talk about e-mobility, the practice is transport, but the emission avoiding are for energy, isn't it? So energy and the transport will be one group in simple terms. So those are the 4 groups that we shall be discussing tomorrow. We shall discuss the content which we want as we follow up on the approaches and the formatting with the consultant, how these have to be presented, isn't it? So that is what we shall be doing tomorrow, and those are the 4 groups. So when we come in the morning, we shall do the categorization of those groups. Okay? Like we did in this morning, then we say group 1, group 2, group 3, and then we shall be able to spread into groups. So the message here is that we thank you for dedicating your time to be part of this, but also let us finish the run. The run is getting finished tomorrow, isn't it? Don't stop on the way. The key issues which pertain causes of climate change and mitigation is what we are discussing today. I mean tomorrow. Today I've been we have been discussing how do we deal with the impacts of climate change, isn't it? Now tomorrow we're going to deal with the causes of what? Climate change. And thereafter, we shall be able also to set timelines depending on the details that will be provided, whether also maintain a Tuesday timeline to receive also the components, isn't it? Yeah? Or we push it by 1 or 2 days to also work it out. But by end of next week, we should have received all comments of adaptation and mitigation, isn't it? So that now the new timeline which you presented here will be able to fit with it, and having the second version of NDC, which is a little bit cleaner than what we are discussing. So with that, thank you very much. Robert has already communicated the admin. The admin will be coming on our phones. Okay? Thank you very much. See you tomorrow.
T is behind. Please don't leave that T. And whoever was using this nice equipment, please pick your equipment.